All right, so I think we have quite a few people on the line now. Welcome, everybody. This is our product success session on sharing product strategy with your organization. Wes is on the other line. There we go. Thank you for changing the slides. So what are product success sessions? We will be focusing on different areas. Generally, they happen every couple months or so. This is an opportunity to discuss setup and implementation for your team, share best practices, and of course, talk to us. Who is us? So I am Andrea. I am product specialist here at ProdPad. With me today is Wes. Yes, you can ask questions. I was just getting to that. This is going to be recorded, by the way. We have polls today, so please get engaged. You can ask questions at the very end. We will send out the recording, as I said. And if you can tell us any other topics that you might be interested in after today, that would be fantastic, so we can cater this to you. I think at this point I can reintroduce myself because I jumped a slide forward. But I'm Andrea. For those that know me, I'm product specialist here at ProdPad. I was the first ProdPad employee. I now focus on supporting you guys with best practices, videos, help resources. I help support our teams internally. And if you're part of the community, you will definitely have seen me there. As I was saying, with me today for his first product success session is Wes, our US team lead. If you guys can give him a warm welcome from wherever you are in the world today. Wes, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure, just unmuting myself. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. I'm excited to do my first product success session. As Andrea mentioned, I'm the U.S. business lead, so was hired end of last year to really support U.S. or North America-based customers in a time zone that's nearer to them. Previously, I was a manager of product management at Pivotal Labs, so a software development and design consultancy, I was operating as a PM and helping teams kind of do product management better. I was the first ProdPad team member that's hired here in the US, and as I mentioned, I support current and prospective customers in North America. So today I'm excited to kind of talk through how we can use ProdPad and just general best practices around sharing product strategy with your organization. So as with these previous sessions, we're going to be discussing with kind of a focus on software-based products, but really this can be extrapolated to other types of products if you're managing hardware, software services, et cetera. So this is applicable to anyone that's developing a product and providing value for customers. So we'll talk a little bit about some components of what makes a good product strategy. We'll get into how you can actually use the ProdPad tool to collaborate with your organization and communicate and share that strategy. And then also how you can document this from the vision perspective, capturing some objectives and key results for the business and the product, and as well as creating and sharing an easy to read outcome-based roadmap. So sometimes vision and strategy can get confused or convoluted, and it's important to differentiate that a vision is really where you're going. So where are you headed? What is your like end result that you're trying to achieve? And the strategy is really how you plan to get there. So it's important to make sure that your entire organization is really aligned on where you're headed, so that everyone is moving in that general direction. Otherwise, you're going to end up aimless and have a lot of disparate kind of actions and activities that go on. And strategy really kind of helps you identify, given the current scenario and your plan, like what is it that you're going to do to actually achieve that vision. It's important to say that strategy is not static. So this is something that, like many things in product management, should be iterative. So initially, many of you probably have already crafted your product strategy, but it's important to put that documented in a place that is accessible to everyone, make sure that it's very transparent. And then once you've crafted it, sharing that with your organization. So it's something that needs to be shared regularly, something that you would want to collect input from many different stakeholders and team members. So that's something that we're I'll show you how to use ProdPad to review it, but then also to have those discussions, to iterate your strategy on the learnings, and then come back and share it again. So this is, especially important in times that we're currently experiencing that are constantly changing, and we need to be able to adapt. So let's make sure that we are doing this iteratively after we adapt. So now it's time for our first question. And so this question will Andrew put up a poll about how involved in product strategy are non-product teams. So this could be customer success, this could be development, or this could be even other stakeholders or marketing. So while y'all are answering that poll, Andrea, would you mind, since you're a representative of the product team at ProdPad, could you share a little bit about how the product team at ProdPad gets other teams involved?
Yeah, so I'm sure this comes to you guys as no surprise, but we are super open and really transparent about everything that we do. And of course, we use ProdPad for ProdPad. That being said, while ProdPad is an amazing tool, not to toot our own horn, but a lot of it is also practices and things that you can do with your team that sit outside of the product itself. So that is things like the fact that our senior product manager will sit down and go through the roadmap with the different teams at least once a month, just to make sure that everybody is up to date about what's happening and things that are coming and are changing and things like that. We also make sure that everyone can get involved in the product process in general. That includes adding ideas, adding feedback, having discussions. So it's definitely really important to have that ability to do that. And I don't know, Wes, as part of the customer team, and as you're new, how you feel about what we do here at ProdPad.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as part of the customer team that's really kind of facing the challenges our customers have, I love being involved in the strategy because it really helps me bring forth the true needs and challenges and problems that customers are having, and be able to kind of help craft and shape that. But it's also transparent, so I don't have to constantly send an emails to our senior product manager and say, what are we doing towards this, or how are we actually achieving this objective? I can actually go into ProdPad, pull up the product team roadmap, and see, all right, these are areas we're headed in and how we're trying to address them. So, and then in the past, when I was at Pivotal, I mean, these are things that we would preach to our customers as a consultant, is you need to get everyone involved in this strategy, because oftentimes innovation comes from people who aren't so close to the product themselves, but have something that's tangentially related, has ideas. So we want to make ProdPad a place where ideas can come from all areas of your organization. So what was the results of the poll, Andrea?
We have an even split between sharing selected information and actively collaborating. And one person said that not much. We only tell them the strategy as opposed to getting them involved.
Okay, well, that's good then. At least there's some information being shared. But I can understand there's probably challenges with sharing all information that need to be maybe addressed even outside of a tool. But that's very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the vision for both your portfolio and even individual products. We use in ProdPad a canvas for capturing this vision and sharing it that is based off of a business model. So you may have seen this in a number of different areas. So this entails things like, what is the value proposition that your entire portfolio or your business provides to your customers? Who are those segments? What are some of their problems that they have? What are the channels that you're going to use to reach those customers? So this is really largely focused on your entire business and how you are going to provide value for the customers and how you're going to reach those customers, and then ultimately the value that those customers, by paying you, provide. So what are the revenue streams? How are you differentiating yourselves from competitors? So we provide a canvas, and I'll jump into the tool in just a minute to show you that. That's at the portfolio level, but then also at the individual product line. If you have in ProdPad, we group products into product lines. So if they're similar types of products and you can put them into multiple product lines, we use a little bit leaner of a canvas because this is really capturing the vision for that product or line. What is a description of it? What does it actually do as it's differentiated from other products? A kind of a high level bullet point overview of your strategy. The more detailed granularity of the strategy comes in on some different sections. And then also what is the value to the business of that product? So if your customers adopt that product and buy it, what kind of value is that providing to your business? So let me jump into the product and I'll show you. So here is our portfolio view that has a set of product lines. So here is property management apps that have multiple products focused on an apartment product, a home tracking product, and more of like a commercial property product. So you can take any of these and move them into the individual product lines and then group product lines underneath your portfolio. Now at each level, we have this canvas that I was talking to. So this is a place where you can document your vision and for the entire portfolio. The business model canvas is shown here. These are editable fields. If you want to customize them, you're able to do that, and you can update your value prop. And as you get a little bit more information about certain advantages relative to competitors or strategies for how you're going to get there, you can update this. And that's at the portfolio level, but then also at the individual product line or product level, you have a canvas that is just a little leaner version with your vision, description, strategy, and value. So these are the places that you can capture the vision for your product and your portfolio and make sure that everyone can have ready access and it's very clear. So let me jump into the next question for our audience, which is how often do you revisit and adjust your product vision? So Andrew, what is your take on like the frequency which you should go back to your vision and look at adjusting that based on any information?
I don't think your vision should be changing that often.
Mm.
Maybe once a year, every couple of years, just make sure that you're still doing what you set out to do. But if you're changing your vision constantly, that could actually lead to things like feature bloat.
Mm.
You want to have a steady vision. The things that can change are the strategy behind that vision. So your objectives, your key results, your initiatives, things like that. But with a solid vision, you're able to pivot on those things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the key here is alignment, and it's very difficult to align on something that's constantly moving, like it's a moving target. So I think I agree. I think it shouldn't be changing very frequently. Now, granted, if some new major event happens and if you have to do a major business pivot, you might be at a startup or a smaller company that really has this brand new information, or the market has suddenly shifted, you may need to change that a bit. But generally, I think aligning, making sure that your team can be aligned on a single unified direction that you're headed, I think is important. What about the audience? How did the poll come out?
So 11% said every quarter, 17% said every 6 months, 28% said every 12 months, and 44% said whenever it's needed.
Okay. It's and there may product vision can sometimes, and we will talk a little bit about the product strategy and updates to that. So there might have been a little bit of confusion there in terms of, does this include the strategic approach in terms of how often you adjust it? But it'd be interesting to hear from how individuals have handled regular updates of their vision. Okay, let's talk a little bit into strategy. Now, just like, I understand that documentation can get really tedious, and some organizations that I have worked with it becomes this kind of wasted busy work, but it is important to give context and justification to really support your strategy. So these are things like you can use ProdPad to put in competitive analysis information you have if you're tracking competitors and you have documentation around it, or market research that you want to put into the product. If you have documentation that is important for everyone to know about for that particular product, what are some of the the product versions that have been released? How are you interpreting some of the prioritization, scoring, or other things? So it's that way everyone can be on the literal same page digitally in the product. So in ProdPad, what that looks like is for every product, we have a documentation tab. And you can, just like a shared Word doc, you can import, you can put tables, you can add links. So there might be some supported product lists you could add in here, versions that, and when they were released, you can see how it's the release cadence that has happened for like major versions. I mentioned the prioritization score. So if you have using impact and effort within ProdPad, you may need one level of, or additional kind of dimension to it. So you can add a table here where a medium impact should have something related to gains, pain relief kind of metrics, or how far those would reach. So you can add more contextual information, as well as if you have a SWOT for your competitive analysis, et cetera. So there's a good place to track documentation for your product. If you do have additional information that's larger, you want to put files in for an SLA or some reports, just use our files tab within that product as well. Okay, so then another component of your strategy, which really is connected to your higher level vision, is the objectives. So this happens at the entire organizational level, but also at the individual product level. But it's important to document them and show how they actually relate to the work that you're doing. So not only to show why you're building it, but also to make sure that you're spending the time wisely to really solve true customer problems and solve your business objectives. So as shown here, it really helps you focus your efforts on these objectives for what are you working towards in this given period. So probably, many companies use annual objectives. And so they said, for this year, we are focused maybe on user growth and user onboarding, making sure that we've got a seamless process. They understand this application or this product. And just heard today someone say, like, if you kind of squint your eyes looking at your roadmap in ProdPad, you can sort of use the colors to see, oh, we've got some purples here in the first now and next column. So we're really initially focused on user growth, but as we're getting into some later times, we know that usability needs to improve because we've got some blues over here. So it's a good way to provide a human readable version of a kind of a roadmap and the problems that you're headed towards. So we make it easy to kind of create objectives and then associate them with initiatives that are on your roadmap. And then coming out, so if you think about objectives as kind of the rudder for a boat, the key results would kind of be like the oars and like the progress and milestones that you are making, that you want to measure your progress towards that end objective. So in ProdPad, this kind of helps you measure the progress towards the objective by adding a key result that allows you to track the impact. So this might be increasing the number of views that the properties in a property management software app might have by a certain percentage. So these need to be measurable. And the cool thing about it in ProdPad is you can track which roadmap cards or initiatives that you are working on that are going to impact the key result that you're measuring. And you're able to track, like, if often these are reviewed quarterly, it's sometimes can be more or less frequent, but those can be done and measured if they're on track, behind, or at risk, and you can add some information as to what actually happened, why did it happen, so you can see on the right side the outcome details. So what that looks like in ProdPad is, so at the product level, you have your product objectives. So you may have the usability objectives for improving the usability, engaging the users, focusing on safety. So you can have a variety of product-focused objectives. And then with each of them, so if I look into engagement, there's a couple different key results that are that we want to track. Reducing the bounce rate, that have multiple initiatives that are currently in the now column, as you can see here, that are going to improve this bounce rate on the pages. You get a chance to say, okay, maybe this one was behind. And as you're going through your quarterly review, you can type in a reason for why that status has changed to now it's behind. And then if you want to get a little bit of additional information on the key results, you can look at the status changes for this. So these are the different key results when they were changed and updated. And once you're done, you can actually see all of the completed key results that are tracked for an individual objective. So that's the product level objectives. Now, sometimes and you want to track at a portfolio level, and this is often seen as the business objectives that you're trying to accomplish with all of your products within your portfolio. So you can differentiate, you'll see this, the 3-box icon for all these portfolio objectives that are focused on revenue, infrastructure, et cetera. So your business is focused on certain objectives and has its individual key results, as well as your product level objectives. And we give the opportunity to publish these objectives in a similar way that you would publish others. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, let's talk about I'm sorry, I should go to this. Who defines your portfolio and product level objectives and key results? Who in your organization is really responsible for creating those? And Andrea, what is this like? This process like at ProdPad for you at the product team, and how do we work across the teams in defining these?
Yeah, so I believe portfolio levels are defined by C-level executives, and then each team or each head of the teams, because we've got a few teams here. We have customer facing, development, and product. In our case, for product, or senior product manager set out some objectives, and then each individual team member writes key results, personal key results for the objectives that they can impact. So I myself may not be able to impact all key results or all objectives, but I can say, for objective X, let's say usability, I can help, reduce or improve or increase whatever this by doing that. And so then I have a very specific key result, and I can show how I can contribute to that. Which is really interesting, because in the past, definitely I was not using OKRs in the proper way. I have one important thing to remember about key results, and I'm sure you'll touch on this, is that they should move the needle in some way. Key results should not be static. So I've had key results in the past where it was like, maintain, customer satisfaction at 92%. That is not a key result. That is a static vanity metric. But that just led to the key result and the objective, not being realistic and not being used properly.
Yeah, that's a great point. And they should be not only achievable in a time period, so you can actually ensure you're making progress, but also really I focused on outcomes for the business, or like for outcomes for your customers, as much as possible, to say that you're not just measuring something, but you are actually measuring something that's progress for them to accomplish whatever it is they've hired your product to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and on the customer team side, we do it similarly. We start from I would say the product managers level at the customer team, kind of creating some of these objectives and key results, but based on the things that we know are important to our customers. And I'd say that then that kind of bubbles up to the higher level objectives and key results. Cool. What about the poll? How'd the results come out?
So 5% said both CEO and CTO, which is interesting. 42% said CPO or head of product. 21% said product manager or product team, and 26% said we don't use OKRs.
Huh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And I could understand the kind of the differentiation between like CPO or head of product and product managers or team. That and especially could also be dependent on size of an organization. That might be a smaller organization, but there some of it is can be top down, like defining the objectives, and then the team kind of comes up with key results, and then others could be more bottoms up, and that's I think some of the beauty of using OKRs is that you can really get the team involved with that. So not too surprised to see there's a split between those CPO and team. Okay, so that's kind of the strategy for from an objectives and key results perspective. But what is it that you're actually going to do? And that's a question we as product people get all the time, and that's where the roadmap comes in. So everyone on this call has probably been asked about what is the product roadmap. So if objectives are where do you want to go, key results are things that you actually need to achieve to accomplish those objectives. Then initiatives, which we represent in ProdPad as roadmap cards, are what problems or opportunities must we address with our customers or even internally to achieve those results. And ideas represent the solution for those problems. Like how might we actually solve those problems? Ideas that we could do, not necessarily that we must do everything, but these are experiments that we might be able to potentially solve those problems and then measure them. So if you actually put that all together in a hierarchy, and this can help you frame how things go and data and information goes into ProdPad, is as I showed you, the product lines that can be composed of multiple products, but then each product has objectives that they're working towards to achieve. That key results can be measured how well you're achieving those objectives. And what is impacting those key results? Well, we're going to do some things. We're going to have some initiatives, problems we're solving, opportunities that we can address, and we need to then come up with some ideas for how we would address those opportunities or solve those problems. And a lot of this then is measured and based on customer feedback. How well are those ideas solving problems? So you can capture and collect feedback. So this is kind of a top to bottom representation of your strategy. And if this is kind of where that roadmap comes in. So if you've seen the ProdPad roadmap, you can potentially draw that line from top to bottom here. So let me ask this. We talked about product vision, but how often do you revisit and adjust your product strategy? And I know, Andrea, you said a vision should be not frequently adjusted, so year or two. What about your strategy? And I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but can you revisit that?
It depends.
Classic.
That's my product management answer, is it really depends. And pivoting or readjusting your strategy will depend on a variety of things like, are you changing your objectives? Are you receiving feedback? Do you have any market research to, support changing your strategy? So it really, really, really depends. It could range from every few months to every 6 months. Again, the classic "it depends" answer, and that is why the ProdPad roadmap is so flexible and allows you to pivot quickly. But this is also why we don't have timelines, because your strategy could shift at any time. We don't know, but at least by having a now column, you're saying this is the stuff that we're focusing on now, that we have committed resources to now, and it's being worked on now. And then next or later, we don't know. It might change.
I mean, I think honestly, this is why agile software development was even kind of became a thing, right? Is to be adaptable, so that because the only constant is change, right? So if everything around you is changing to some extent, we need to be adaptable in how we develop products and software. And then, but also that means then our strategy for how we are getting to our objectives should be changing. It doesn't have to be drastic changes like you're saying, but we want to be able to, it might be simple as reprioritizing. Right. So we are going to, instead of working towards this usability enhancement, while usability is important, we've got some significant problems our customers are experiencing in a different area that we need to address first. So that is a shift, in my opinion, of strategy. But what did the audience think? How often do they revisit?
So 44% said every quarter, 19% said every 6 months, and 38% said whenever it's needed.
Okay. All right, interesting. So whenever it's needed, could be more frequently than every quarter, or it could be longer than every 12 months. Okay, interesting. So let's talk about the roadmap. This really, as you know, you have your vision and your overarching strategy for what your product is trying to do, what sets it apart from competitors, who it's for, but for ongoing, updates and how you make decisions about the direction of your product is the roadmap. And every product manager is familiar with one. And one of the things that Jana, our CEO and co-founder, loves to say is the roadmap is a prototype for your strategy. So this is, it's an important factor in success that you understand where you're headed. But sharing that roadmap should be done for the right reasons. So rather than using your roadmap as something that's static, which outlines a very fixed plan, consider using this as a way of starting a conversation. So if you think about a prototype, that's kind of a way of testing something, right? They're a way of showing people the things you think will work and provoking discussion about what could be better. But if you apply that thinking to your roadmap, then the result is that you're constantly able to adjust, like we just talked about, your strategy based on market changes, about feedback from other stakeholders, and of course, feedback from your customers. So as you continue to do product discovery, you should be learning more and more about your customers, about their needs and their challenges, and how does your strategy need to adapt? And that might mean that certain things that you thought were going to launch sooner gets pushed back, which is one of the reasons why we avoid putting dates. So our roadmap looks like a time horizon roadmap, which you're probably all very familiar with, and we do this so that you can focus on the problems that are being addressed now, so that at the problem level you can say these are the things we're solving, but let the actual product team who is closest to the customer in terms of understanding their product and how best to solve it. Honestly, I think engineers are some of the most creative problem solvers that I've worked with, and so helping them understand the context for what problem we're trying to solve, they might come up with an even better way of doing it rather than the feature idea that I might have had. So we make it easy to put initiatives that are focused on problems onto the roadmap in these time horizons of now, next, and later. And so in ProdPad, the roadmap is something that you can have your columns displayed at varying levels of granularity and levels of detail. We understand that you're going to be creating maybe multiple versions of your roadmap with different levels of detail, and you want to be able to easily share that. So you can have a simple view of your roadmap, which is shown here, or you can expand that to show a number of ideas that are currently being considered as potential experiments for solving that problem. And then you can also go to the fully detailed level, which involves things like the impact and effort that initiative might take. And so this is something that you can change the level of detail and then share that. And we'll get into sharing and how to share your canvases and roadmap in a little bit. But before I do, I'd love to hear how many different versions of your roadmap do you typically create and share? Andrea, what does that look like within the product team at ProdPad?
Well, the product team has a few roadmaps, which is interesting. So we have our external customer-facing roadmap, and it's interesting that you bring it up. I don't know if you can go on our actual roadmap page on the website, because somebody did ask if we could share our actual roadmap. So for those that don't know, of course, our roadmap is available for everyone. But as this loads, the version that we have available for you guys to see is pretty simple. So you can see our objectives, the stuff that we're focusing on, and the title of each initiative itself. So, you know, it's pretty easy to see what the stuff that we're focusing on is. Somebody also did ask if we can share the vision and strategy. Unfortunately, I believe that might be a little bit private. But I know that on the apartment tracker canvas that you showed earlier, we have an example of how a vision might be structured. So the sort of typical template that you can use is the one that's under that vision box. So who it's for, you know, what you're aiming to solve, you know, so the who, the that, unlike product X, this is what we might be focusing on. So we do have that template available as well on our blog. It's fairly easy to find.
Yeah, from the customer team perspective, one of the nice things is I'll often get questions from existing or prospective customers about, are you working on this? And I can, while it doesn't necessarily show the detail, I know from conversations with the product team, what are the problems that our team is trying to solve. So, you know, helping users find things they need more easily to make them more efficient. So discoverability, so that you can actually, as a user of ProdPad, find things. So if I'm able to answer some questions that I'm getting from, as a, you know, on the sales side, saying like, yes, this is something that we are currently working on, it's in our now column, or there's something that maybe there's a problem that they're experiencing that, you know, talking about Jira users to be effective more quickly. So if I'm getting those Jira questions, I can say that's something that our team is it's on our roadmap. We're planning to address that next. So I can point back to this publicly available roadmap without necessarily having to go into all the levels of detail. What about the poll, Andrea? What were the results of that?
Really interesting. So 38% said just one version.
Okay.
To share with everyone. 50% said 2 to 3, each with different levels of detail. And 13% said more than 3.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a little bit interesting that there's just one version shared with everyone. I mean, I think that's actually probably good in the sense of being able to be transparent. And hopefully that has the level of detail and granularity that's necessary to communicate what is being done and why. And so like that's, you know, if for those that did answer wanting to create multiple versions or 2 to 3, it's very simple. We have a roadmap publishing app in ProdPad that allows you to create multiple versions of your roadmap. So you might have, so say sales and marketing might have they want a customer-friendly roadmap that they can see that has maybe simple levels of detail, it has the objective, it has, you know, the title and description about the problem being addressed, maybe some tags. But even if once you're creating this, you can actually control the view with what information you would like to include. So you could turn off the tags potentially if the sales and marketing team doesn't want or need to see that, ideas, user stories. So maybe you just have a few things that are there for sharing with the marketing. Once you're ready, you click save, and you can then create a embed code if you would like to embed this into a web page. You can embed this in some other systems like Confluence, Salesforce, and then if you want to just send a URL, you can create this shareable link and then pull that up into the URL, and it will populate and see. This would be the sales and marketing version of the roadmap that URL would have. So this is obviously this is a portfolio level roadmap because it has multiple products shown on that roadmap. So that gives you the opportunity to create a version that if you then change, if say this reducing friction card gets moved from the next column into the now column, that link will update behind the scenes so that sales will still have the most up-to-date version of the roadmap. And then if you maybe you want a roadmap version that when you're working with your development team that has a lot more level of detail and it has all of the ideas that are listed, the status that they are in the workflow stage, the tags, impact and effort, and then which product managers are assigned to them. So you can have a version that's much more detailed. So you can easily go into this, the published versions, and identify, be able to pull those out and send them, share them, or embed them. And while I'm talking about sharing, let's also go back to the canvases. So it is important to stay aligned with your organization on what your vision and strategy are. So we do make it the ability to publish the product canvas or the portfolio canvas, and so you get a clean view of that and can save that as a PDF if you wanted to share it or drop it into slides or other things. Okay. So let's also talk about discussions. So, as you all know, product doesn't work in a vacuum, and developing product strategy is something that needs to be more of like a team sport. The best strategies are actually informed by stakeholders across all disciplines. So really gathering input from everywhere to inform that strategic development is critical. And you've probably seen in almost every area of ProdPad, there's a place to have a discussion. But did you know that even at this, the product level, there's a section for discussions. So if you wanted to talk about some of the documentation or the files or things about the product, and you can have discussions there. If you have a roadmap card, if you want to talk about the strategy for this particular initiative and ask, maybe there needs to be some adjustments, your team can come in here if they are into ProdPad and have a discussion with that. So it gives you a number of different places within the product at the individual product level that the team can discuss. So capturing and gathering input from everyone is key. So what is your biggest challenge? So this would be great to hear from y'all. What's their biggest challenge with getting your organization aligned on product strategy? I say biggest because I feel like everyone has some sort of level of challenges with alignment on strategy. So Andrea's put the poll up there. Would love to hear your thoughts, and maybe we'll get a chance to kind of address some of them. Andrea, what is your challenge on the product team at ProdPad with getting alignment with the entire organization?
Do we have any issues? That one kind of caught me off guard. I think the way we do things at ProdPad is very, very unique. It's definitely the one company where I've had the most transparency between all teams in general. So we all know what we're actually doing, and that includes the dev team, that includes the customer team. So we all know what we are working on. And I've definitely never had that level of transparency ever in any team. Usually teams are so siloed that, development has no idea what sales is trying to do, and sales has no idea what product is trying to do. So I think we're in a very privileged situation in general. And on this note, it's really interesting because one of the comments that we just got is I aspire to have that level of transparency. So I understand. I absolutely get that. But as I'm saying that, anyone that needs help with that, we do offer something called a roadmap clinic, which is a 1-hour free session with, it could be with Wes, it could be with Emma, who is on the line right now. She usually gives her product success sessions. You might get lucky enough to even get a session with Jana, but part of what we do is help you, set up your roadmap for success, but also give you some tips on how you can create that transparency and not be afraid of it. Because I think what happens a lot of the times is people think that by sharing the roadmap in general, not necessarily our roadmap, but the roadmap in general, it might cause stakeholders to get more demanding, or I don't know, competitors stealing ideas or stuff like that. But that's why we offer different levels so that you can share them with different audiences.
Yeah, I think this is one where I have a lot of empathy for our customers, because, I've come from organizations where the sharing and being vulnerable and transparent with sharing the plans get taken as these are hard deadlines, hard plans that are not going to change, even if you communicate it otherwise. So I can definitely empathize. I hear from customers that it is a challenge, and kind of like, I think many product managers would love to have that level of transparency, but it is definitely a challenge. I think if I were to answer this poll, I would say that our biggest challenge at ProdPad might be the differences of opinion on strategic approach, because we are a bunch of former product managers who have very strong opinions about how we're going to
That's
address
very
something.
true.
And so we use the discussion threads in ProdPad. Our Slack integration has a great way to just thread discussions, so you don't even have to leave Slack. So we often do that as well, to kind of challenge one another with how we're going to approach some strategic thing. But I think that would probably be our most difficult thing.
We're all very opinionated.
This is true. What did the poll results show?
23% said communicating the strategy in an understandable way. 38% said differences of opinion on strategic approach, so much like us. 23% said not enough supporting evidence or data, and 15% said lack of engagement by stakeholders.
Yeah, so hopefully, having ProdPad to help at least create versions that are shareable, or giving access to stakeholders to see the justification behind it, the supporting data, will help resolve some of those challenges. But it's definitely it's interesting and not unsurprising to see a split, because those are all challenges that I've seen many customers experience. Okay. So the last thing, I just wanted to come back to this kind of loop, that it's important to not only craft your strategy, it's important to share it with your organization, to get the entire organization involved and to discuss it, and then also to iterate on those learnings. But once you do it, share it again, get everyone involved to see that you are adapting, and that making it very clear that, okay, some big event has happened, we've adjusted, we've pivoted, we're taking a slightly different approach. What do you think on that? So it's important to make this entire thing a loop, and that's why sharing our roadmaps within ProdPad is something that we've made so easy to do. And speaking of benefits of using ProdPad, I think when it comes to aligning your organization on your entire product strategy, ProdPad is really helpful to be transparent and open about not only the information, but about your process, about the data that supports it. It's a single accessible place. You can collect and manage all of your feedback. That supports the ideas you're working on. It shows you all of the ideas and how they're going to potentially achieve objectives. It helps you connect the dots from that highest level vision, so that top of that funnel that I showed, down to strategy and the individual tactics that you're going to execute. It's very makes sharing and really easy, so that hopefully will facilitate alignment across your organization. So with that, does anyone have, it looks like we have maybe a couple questions. There's a final poll. If you do have any thoughts on, as Andrea mentioned at the beginning, on some topics that you would like to see for future sessions, please drop that in the chat. Or if you wanted to ask in the Q&A, that would be fine. So we would love to meet your needs, any burning questions or challenges that you're having within your organization, and we can address those in a future session.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. Will this be recorded? Yes, absolutely. This is being recorded, and it will be sent out usually by Monday, I believe, if not sooner. But it will be sent out, so you can definitely share it. The next question was, can editors see all published roadmaps? Editors can see the roadmaps they have published, not all the existing ones by admins or product managers. So I hope that answers your question. Another interesting one that came through for you, Wes, is if the company has one product, should there only be one product strategy?
So I think that if you have a single product and a single product roadmap, that's kind of your version of your strategy to get there. I think the important thing to call out there is that it needs to be a flexible strategy, right? So I think with one product, there would be one product strategy that you have based on current information, but it needs to be adaptable to as if there's new information or a market change, that you would then change that and prioritize accordingly. Any other questions? All right. Well, that is the session.
I am so sorry. I was talking and I realized I was muted. I am so sorry for that. We did get a question.
Okay.
I apologize. I've been talking for like the last 30 seconds. Someone is saying they've been using ProdPad for a couple of months and they love it, but they've been struggling to get the team on board. What are some quick tips to get the company's buy-in for roadmaps and customer feedback? I mean, we could give you an hour session on that. Do we have some quick tips perhaps, Wes?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the important thing is to, so getting their buy-in is to show that it has added value, that you are adding value, you're addressing your customers' needs, right? So one of the areas I think that can be the most powerful is ideas that the team is working on or currently planning to work on, connecting that with customer feedback that has been received. Ideally, this is in ProdPad already, and you can actually go into, in fact, while I'm in here, I might as well go into an idea in ProdPad and show you. So if I have an idea, say bulk editing on mobile, I can start to see, okay, there's some customer that has asked about this. But if I go back into the ideas chart, then I can sort based on the number of feedback that we've received related to an idea. So we've got a lot of feedback around this FAQ kind of documentation. So helping the rest of your organization understand that you are using a data-driven approach to collect feedback from customers that have been tied into your ideas, that if we solve this problem, see, this roadmap is at making it easier for customers to understand the product. If we solve that roadmap problem, we're going to see increased user growth and engagement. And user growth probably means revenue, right? And more engaged customers means retention. So you're starting to craft that story of data-driven approach to solving customer problems that then will achieve business objectives. So I think that will help people get involved. The other tip that I would say is getting them involved in the tools they're already using. So if you're talking about customer success teams or support, maybe they're using a Zendesk or an Intercom. Well, look into setting up through Zapier an integration with that, so that feedback comes in directly into ProdPad without them having to necessarily log in and use our quick add toolbar, which is great. But if they're using things, Slack integration is another example. If you're already using Slack, then have them add feedback or ideas directly from Slack, and you'll actually get a richer volume of information, and they will feel invested into the product development and the product strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a few really good points, which is to get your team involved in the tools that they're using. I believe it was either the previous one or the one before that, our success session, was actually about how to get your team involved with feedback. We do also have a couple of blog posts and help center articles around that. And we are going to send some resources as well as part of the follow-up to this session. But yeah, get them involved in the conversation. I'd mention them, bring them in. If you use the Slack integration, that will allow people to reply directly from Slack, and it will ping them in Slack as well. So it's super easy to follow. So I hope that helped. Like I said, we could probably give you an hour session just on that. So I have pinged the success team to reach out to you directly, so we can give you a little bit more assistance on that. I am not muted this time, I'm fairly sure, and we don't have any other questions. So I think we can wrap it up now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. As I said, we will be sending out the recording over the next couple of days, if not early next week. If you want to have a direct follow-up with us or with someone, hopefully with Wes directly, you can absolutely do that. We will be sending out emails to let you know how to book a session. And I believe that is it. Stay safe. And if you have any other topics that you may want to hear about, let us know through email, through our intercom chat. Just let us know, and we can plan this for next time.
Yeah, thank you all for listening and for your questions.
Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.